He was born to die. A decree had gone out from the throne of Egypt. Every Hebrew boy born that season would be thrown into the Nile. Yet this boy would grow up inside Pharaoh's own palace. He would speak face to face with God. He would stretch out his hand over the sea, and the sea would divide. He would carry the words of God down from a mountain blazing with fire. His name meant drawn from the water. This is the story of Moses. The story begins in darkness. For 400 years, the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob had been living in Egypt. They had come as guests during the Great Famine, 70 souls who followed the path that Joseph had prepared. But generations had passed. The Pharaoh who knew Joseph was gone. A new king sat on the throne, and he looked out at the swelling population of Hebrews and felt something rise in his chest. Fear. He said to his people, "The Israelites have become too numerous for us. We must deal shrewdly with them, or they will join our enemies and fight against us and leave the country." So Egypt enslaved them. They were set to work with bricks and mortar, with hard labor in the fields. Their lives were made bitter. But the more the Egyptians oppressed them, the more they multiplied, the more they spread. So Pharaoh went further. He commanded the Hebrew midwives Shiphrah and Puah to kill every boy born to a Hebrew woman. The midwives feared God. They refused.
We cannot do this. No, we will not. Our lives are not his. We stand together.
They told Pharaoh the Hebrew women were too vigorous. They gave birth before a midwife could arrive. God blessed the midwives for this, and the people continued to grow. So Pharaoh issued his final order. Every Hebrew boy that is born, you must throw him into the Nile. Into this terror, a woman of the tribe of Levi gave birth to a son.
My son,
The Bible says she saw that he was a fine child, and she hid him for 3 months.
I won't let them
When
take
she
you.
could hide him no
Sleep
longer,
now, my love.
she did the most desperate and faithful thing a mother could do. She wove a basket from papyrus reeds. She coated it with tar and pitch to seal it against the water. She placed her baby inside. She set it among the reeds along the bank of the Nile. And she told his older sister Miriam to watch from a distance. Then she walked away. The Nile that was meant to be his grave became the road to his rescue. Pharaoh's own daughter came down to bathe. She noticed the basket. She sent her attendant to retrieve it. She opened it, and the baby cried. She felt sorry for him. "This is one of the Hebrew babies," she said. At that moment, Miriam stepped forward.
Shall I go and get one of the Hebrew women to nurse the baby?
God arranged it so that a Hebrew mother was paid by Pharaoh's daughter to raise her own son inside the enemy's protection. When the child was old enough, his mother brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, and she named him Moses because, she said, "I drew him out of the water." Moses grew up in Pharaoh's palace. He received the finest education in the ancient world: Egyptian mathematics, astronomy, philosophy, military strategy. He walked the corridors of power. But something lived in him that the palace could never quite contain. One day, Moses went out to where his own people were at hard labor. He watched them, and he saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, one of his own people. He looked this way, he looked that way, he saw no one. He killed the Egyptian. He buried him in the sand. The next day he went out again. He saw 2 Hebrews fighting. He tried to intervene. The one in the wrong turned on him. "Are you going to kill me like you killed that Egyptian?" Moses was afraid. He realized the act was known. When Pharaoh heard, he tried to kill Moses, and Moses fled.
Hey everyone! Before we continue, we'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your country, city, or location in the comments, and let's see how far this amazing community reaches. We're excited to have you here.
He fled east, across the desert, to the land of Midian. He sat down beside a well. He was alone, exhausted, a fugitive. 7 daughters of a Midianite priest named Jethro came to draw water. Shepherds drove them away. Moses stood up and helped them, and watered their flocks. Their father asked why they had come home so early. They told him about the Egyptian who had helped them. He said, "Where is he? Why did you leave him? Invite him to have something to eat." Moses agreed to stay. He married Jethro's daughter Zipporah. She bore him a son. He named him Gershom, which means, "I have become a foreigner in a foreign land." The prince of Egypt was now a shepherd in the wilderness. He had traded a palace for a tent, a throne for a flock. 40 years passed, 40 years of desert, 40 years of learning the landscape he would one day lead a nation through. And back in Egypt, the king of Egypt died, but the groaning of the Israelites continued. They cried out, and God heard. God remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, with Jacob.
I have remembered my
God
covenant
looked on
with
the
Abraham,
Israelites.
Isaac,
God was
and
concerned
Jacob.
about them. One ordinary day, Moses was tending the flocks of his father-in-law Jethro near Horeb, the mountain of God. He saw something that should not have been possible. A bush was on fire, but the bush was not burning up. Moses said to himself, "I will go over and see this strange sight, why the bush does not burn up." When the Lord saw that he had gone over to look, God called to him from within the bush.
Moses! Moses! Here I am! Remove your sandals, for where you are standing is holy ground.
At this, Moses hid his face because he was afraid to look at God. And God said,
I have indeed seen the misery of my people. I have heard them crying out. I have come down to rescue them. Go. I am sending you to Pharaoh.
And Moses said,
Who am I, that I should go to Pharaoh?
God answered,
I will be with you.
Moses said,
Suppose they ask me, What is his name? What shall I tell them?
God said to Moses,
I am who I am. Tell them, I am has sent me to you.
the eternal, self-existent God, the God who needs no source, the God who simply is. Moses pushed back again. What if they do not believe me or listen to me? God gave him signs. He threw his staff to the ground. It became a serpent. He picked it up. It became a staff again. He put his hand inside his cloak. When he withdrew it, it was white with leprosy. He put it back. It was restored. Water from the Nile poured onto the ground would become blood. Moses tried one more time.
Pardon your servant. I am slow of speech and tongue.
God answered,
Who gave human beings their mouths? Is it not I, the Lord? Go. Aaron, your brother, will speak for you. Now go.
Moses returned to his father-in-law, gathered his family, and set out for Egypt. The 80-year-old fugitive was going home as God's messenger. Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh. They delivered the Lord's first message. Let my people go, so that they may hold a festival to me in the wilderness. Pharaoh's response was immediate and brutal.
Who is the Lord that I should obey him?
He made things worse. He removed the straw the Israelites needed for brickmaking, but kept their quota the same. They were beaten for falling short. They turned against Moses. You have made us obnoxious to Pharaoh. You have put a sword in his hand to kill us. Moses went back to the Lord and said,
Why, Lord? Why have you brought trouble on this people?
God answered with a promise. I am the Lord. I will bring you out from under the yoke of Egypt. I will free you from slavery. I will redeem you with an outstretched arm and with mighty acts of judgment. I will take you as my own people. I will be your God. But Pharaoh's heart was hard, and now the confrontation would escalate into something the ancient world had never seen. God sent Moses and Aaron back to Pharaoh with signs. Aaron threw down his staff, it became a serpent. Pharaoh's magicians did the same with their dark arts, but Aaron's staff swallowed theirs. Still, Pharaoh's heart was hardened. Then came the first plague. Aaron struck the Nile with his staff. The water turned to blood. The fish died. The river stank. 7 days passed. Pharaoh would not listen. The second plague. Frogs swarmed out of the Nile and covered the land. Into the houses, the bedrooms, the ovens, the kneading troughs, into the beds of Pharaoh himself. Pharaoh summoned Moses. "Pray to the Lord to take the frogs away." Moses prayed. The frogs died. The land reeked with them. And Pharaoh hardened his heart. The third plague. Aaron struck the dust of the ground. It became gnats, covering humans and animals throughout Egypt. The magicians tried and failed. They told Pharaoh, "This is the finger of God." Pharaoh would not listen. The fourth plague. Dense swarms of flies filled Pharaoh's palace and the houses of his officials. But in Goshen, where the Israelites lived, there were no flies. The fifth plague. A severe disease struck all the Egyptian livestock. Every horse, donkey, camel, cattle, sheep, and goat. Not one animal belonging to the Israelites died. Pharaoh's heart remained hard. The sixth plague. Moses threw soot into the air before Pharaoh. It became fine dust over all of Egypt, and festering boils broke out on both humans and animals. Even the magicians could not stand before Moses because of the boils. Pharaoh's heart remained hard. The seventh plague. Moses stretched out his staff toward the sky. The Lord sent thunder and hail. Lightning flashed to the ground. It was the worst storm in all the land of Egypt since it had become a nation. The hail struck down everything in the fields, both people and animals. It stripped every tree. Only in Goshen, where the Israelites were, there was no hail. Pharaoh said, "This time I have sinned. The Lord is in the right. I will let you go." Moses left and prayed. The thunder and hail stopped. And Pharaoh sinned again. He hardened his heart. The eighth plague. A wind brought locusts from the east. They covered the ground until it was black. They devoured everything growing in the fields, everything the hail had left. Nothing green remained. Pharaoh's officials said to him, "How long will this man be a snare to us? Let the people go. Do you not yet realize that Egypt is ruined?" Pharaoh relented a little. He said only the men could go. Moses refused. God sent a west wind. The locusts were swept into the Red Sea. Pharaoh hardened his heart. The ninth plague. Moses stretched out his hand toward the sky, and total darkness covered all Egypt for 3 days. No one could see anyone else or leave their place for 3 days, yet all the Israelites had light in the places where they lived. Pharaoh made his final offer.
You may go, but leave your livestock. Not a hoof will be left behind. Get out of my sight. The day you see my face, you will die. Just as you say, I will never appear before you again.
One plague remained, and it would shatter Egypt forever. God spoke to Moses, "About midnight I will go throughout Egypt. Every firstborn son in Egypt will die, from the firstborn of Pharaoh who sits on the throne, to the firstborn of the slave girl who is at her handmill, and all the firstborn of the cattle as well." But for Israel, there would be a way of escape. God gave detailed instructions. Each household was to take a lamb without defect, a year old. They were to take some of the blood and put it on the sides and tops of the doorframes of the houses where they ate the lamb. That night they would roast the lamb and eat it with bitter herbs and unleavened bread. They were to eat with their cloaks tucked into their belts, their sandals on their feet, their staff in their hand, ready to leave at a moment's notice. The blood will be a sign for you on the houses where you are. And when I see the blood, I will pass over you. No destructive plague will touch you when I strike Egypt. At midnight, the Lord struck down all the firstborn of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh, who sat on the throne, to the firstborn of the prisoner in the dungeon. Pharaoh rose during the night, he and all his officials and all the Egyptians, and there was loud wailing in Egypt, for there was not a house without someone dead. Pharaoh summoned Moses and Aaron in the night. Up, leave my people, you and the Israelites. Go, worship the Lord. Take your flocks and herds, and also bless me. The Egyptians urged the people to hurry, otherwise we will all die. And Israel went. Approximately 600,000 men on foot, plus women and children. A great mixed multitude also went with them. They left with silver, gold, and clothing pressed upon them by the Egyptians, who urged them out. 430 years of slavery ended in a single night. God led them by a pillar of cloud by day, and a pillar of fire by night. He did not leave them without his presence for a single hour. Then Pharaoh changed his mind.
What have we done? We have let their services go! Prepare the chariots!
He had 600 of the best chariots of Egypt, along with all the other chariots of Egypt, with officers over all of them. He pursued Israel. The Israelites looked up, and there was the Egyptian army, advancing with horses, chariots, and horsemen. They were camped by the sea. Terror swept through the camp. They said to Moses, "Was it because there were no graves in Egypt that you brought us to the desert to die? What have you done to us by bringing us out of Egypt? It would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the desert."
Why we are trapped! Fear not! Stand firm and you will see the deliverance. But how the Lord will fight for you! Be still!
The angel of God moved. The pillar of cloud shifted from the front and stood behind them, coming between the armies of Egypt and Israel. Throughout the night, the cloud brought darkness to one side and light to the other. Neither came near the other all night long. Then Moses stretched out his hand over the sea. All that night the Lord drove the sea back with a strong east wind and turned it into dry land. The waters were divided. The Israelites went through the sea on dry ground, with a wall of water on their right and on their left. The Egyptians pursued. They followed into the sea. God looked down from the pillar of fire and cloud. He threw the Egyptian army into confusion. He jammed the wheels of their chariots so that they had difficulty driving. The Egyptians said, "Let's get away from the
Let's
Israelites.
get away!
The Lord is fighting for them against Egypt." But it was too late. Moses stretched out his hand over the sea again. At daybreak, the sea went back to its place. The Egyptians were fleeing directly toward it. The Lord swept them into the sea. Not one survived. And when the Israelites saw the mighty hand of the Lord displayed against the Egyptians, the people feared the Lord and put their trust in him and in Moses his servant. Then Moses and the Israelites sang to the Lord.
I will sing to the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously.
Sing to the Lord, he is highly exalted.
And Miriam, the prophetess, took a timbrel in her hand. All the women followed her with timbrels and dancing. And Miriam sang, "Sing to the Lord, for he is highly exalted. Both horse and driver he has hurled into the sea." The miracle at the sea should have settled everything. It did not. 3 days into the desert, there was no water. The people grumbled against Moses. God showed Moses a piece of wood. Moses threw it into the bitter water, and it became sweet. God declared, "I am the Lord who heals you." In the wilderness of Sin, the whole community grumbled again. If only we had died in Egypt. There we sat around pots of meat and ate all the food we wanted. You have brought us into this desert to starve us to death. God rained bread from heaven. Every morning, thin flakes like frost appeared on the desert surface. The people asked each other, "What is it?" Moses said, "It is the bread the Lord has given you to eat." They called it manna. In the evening, quail covered the camp. God fed them meat and bread in the desert for 40 years. At Rephidim there was no water. The people quarreled with Moses. "Why did you bring us out of Egypt, to make us and our children and livestock die of thirst?" God told Moses to strike the rock at Horeb with his staff. Moses struck it. Water gushed out. Then Amalek came and attacked Israel. Moses stood on a hilltop, with the staff of God raised in his hands. When his hands were up, Israel prevailed. When his hands fell, Amalek prevailed. Aaron and Hur held up his arms, one on each side, until sunset. And Joshua overwhelmed the Amalekite army. The wilderness was not a punishment. It was a school. God was preparing a nation for what lay ahead. 3 months after leaving Egypt, Israel arrived at the desert of Sinai. They camped in front of the mountain. Moses went up to God, and God called to him from the mountain. You yourselves have seen what I did to Egypt, and how I carried you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. If you obey me fully and keep my covenant, then out of all nations you will be my treasured possession. The people consecrated themselves. On the morning of the 3rd day there was thunder and lightning, with a thick cloud over the mountain, and a very loud trumpet blast. Everyone in the camp trembled. Mount Sinai was covered with smoke, because the Lord descended on it in fire. The whole mountain trembled violently. And God spoke. He gave the 10 Commandments, the great moral architecture of human civilization. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not murder. You shall not steal. You shall not give false testimony. You shall not covet. Moses went up into the mountain. He was there 40 days and 40 nights. God gave him detailed instructions for the tabernacle, the portable dwelling place of God among his people. God gave Moses 2 stone tablets, the tablets of the covenant, written with the finger of God. But while Moses was on the mountain, the people grew restless. They gathered around Aaron and said, "Come, make us gods who will go before us. As for this fellow Moses, we don't know what has happened to him." Aaron took their gold earrings, melted them, and fashioned them into the shape of a calf. The people said, "These are your gods, Israel, who brought you out of Egypt." God told Moses what had happened. His anger burned. He was prepared to consume them and make Moses into a great nation. But Moses interceded. He pleaded for the people. He reminded God of his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And the Lord relented. Moses came down from the mountain with the 2 tablets in his hands. When he saw the calf and the dancing, his anger burned. He threw the tablets, breaking them at the foot of the mountain. He destroyed the calf. 3,000 people died that day for their rebellion. But the nation was not destroyed. Moses returned to God. "Please forgive their sin, but if not, then blot me out of the book you have written." God chiseled new tablets. He wrote the commandments again. And he declared his name to Moses, passing in front of him and proclaiming, the Lord, the compassionate and gracious God, slow to anger, abounding in love and faithfulness, maintaining love to thousands, and forgiving wickedness, rebellion, and sin." Moses led Israel for 40 years in the wilderness. He saw God perform miracle after miracle. He spoke with God as a man speaks with his friend. He was not permitted to enter the promised land because of one act of disobedience at the waters of Meribah. He struck the rock instead of speaking to it. And God said,
Because you did not trust in me before the people, you will not bring them into the promised land.
Moses climbed Mount Nebo. God showed him the entire promised land, from Gilead to Dan, all of Naphtali, Ephraim, Manasseh, Judah, the Negev, and the whole region from the valley of Jericho to Zoar. He saw it with his own eyes. And then Moses, the servant of the Lord, died there in Moab. He was 120 years old. His eyes were not weak. His strength was not gone. God buried him in a valley in Moab. No one knows where his grave is to this day. Since then, No prophet has risen in Israel like Moses, whom the Lord knew face to face. No one who did all those signs and wonders the Lord sent him to do in Egypt. No one who demonstrated that mighty power that Moses displayed in the sight of all Israel. Moses' story was never just about Egypt. It was always about what God does when his people are in chains. He hears, he remembers, he comes down, he rescues. Every detail of the Exodus points forward to Jesus, the Passover lamb without blemish, the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world. The blood on the doorpost, the blood of the cross. The bread from heaven, the one who said, I am the bread of life. The water from the rock. Paul writes that the rock was Christ. Moses could not take the people into the promised land. It took another man whose name in Hebrew was the same, Yeshua, Joshua, Jesus. You may be in your own wilderness right now, a season that feels like it has no end, where the water is bitter, where the way forward is not clear. The God of Moses is still the God who hears, the God who sees, the God who says, I have come down to rescue. It was an invitation. It still is.
If this story speaks to you, subscribe to Sacred Scrolls Animation and never miss a new Bible story brought to life through cinematic animation every week. Please subscribe, it's free and it truly supports the channel.